So when I tell this story, I almost always tell the abbreviated version. And the abbreviated version is that I was working in the music industry, doing what I loved, when I was struck with debilitating anxiety. And it got so bad that I would find myself crawling under the cubbyhole in the bottom of my desk and curling up in fetal position to get through the day. And I would stay there until I could screw up the courage to come out and face the day. It's all true. It's not the whole story. The whole story is that, well, I had a business working in the music industry. It was my dream job. We were helping unsigned bands to become famous. And on the surface, it looked like we were successful. We had 700 bands. We were distributing music to 2,000 outlets around the world, including things like Strawberries and Tower Records, if you remember those things. And on the surface, it looked like we were successful. We were helping a lot of people and having a lot of fun doing it, going to a lot of shows at night, meeting famous musicians, stuff like that. It was fun. But the reality is that I was losing my mind behind the surface. I had trouble leaving the house during the day, and it had gotten so bad that I had the suicide hotline number on my desk at home in case I had decided to not make it through the day. I knew I wasn't going to, but there were times when I wasn't sure. In that moment, I was going through what people call the dark night of the soul. I had lost connection with anything that actually mattered. My spiritual development was gone, and all of it was really a big wake-up call for me. And so I started looking under every rock, trying to find some way to help myself. You know, I was going to acupuncture. I had even been to a Reiki practitioner. I was using essential oils. And I started going to an NAET practitioner. It's someone who does allergy elimination, thinking that it might be allergies. And she had actually talked me into taking some training, which actually did end up being life-changing. And so during that time, I had gone through a breakup with my boyfriend who had kissed another girl, who he ended up marrying in the end, and moved out of the house almost overnight in the middle of all this. And it was, it was devastating. And then I came home one day. It was February 12th. I remember this would have been 1997 or 1998 maybe. I remember because it was President's Day and it was snowing, and I had taken a friend to the airport. And when I got home, I found that I walked in the door and my cat was, and directly in front of me was the back door. The front door had a little hallway, and beside the hallway was my roommate's door, and then behind me was the back door, which was a glass door. And I could see that my cat was outside, which was highly unusual. He was not going to be outside on a snowy day. So I took a beeline directly to the back door to let him in, and I looked over at my roommate's door on the side, and there was a note on there. And I could see immediately that it was a suicide note that had been written for me. And I opened the door, praying that, I don't know what I was praying for, but I opened the door and found that my 21-year-old roommate had put on his best suit, gotten into bed, and put a gun to his mouth and blown the back of his head off. And that was a wake-up call. I found myself in my room shaking after calling 911 and praying, asking that God either take him or let him come back. He was still alive, or looked like it anyway. Either take him or bring him back to what he was, because he was a brilliant young guy with an incredible future, or so it seemed. Of course he died. But it did two things for me. One is it reminded me how much I needed my connection. And number two, it made me realize I was definitely not going to take that road. So I doubled down on my efforts, trying to find a solution to all of this. So in the meantime, I had met someone new, and he really was amazing. And I picked up my life and I moved to West Virginia with him. And because of the training I had taken, I had decided to open a little practice to help people with alternative health care while I was on my own spiritual journey, trying to figure out, who I was and what I wanted to do and be in this lifetime. As a part of that, we were invited to participate in this alternative healthcare fair for a little, like an association of EFT practitioners in town, and not EFT practitioners, I'm sorry, an association of alternative healthcare practitioners who wanted to inform people about the power of alternative healthcare. This was in, 1999. And so we went to that, but my anxiety was in high gear on that day. I could barely make it through. I was visibly shaking. And there was a guy there named Ken, who I never saw before or since. I don't remember his last name. And he said to me, do you want to try this tapping thing? And I was like, sure. I was trying everything. But then he started walking me through the basic recipe. And I swear I laughed out loud and I rolled my eyes at this poor man. And I said, this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There is no way that I can tap on places on my body and make my anxiety go away. You're freaking nuts. I didn't say that, but I was thinking it. But then I realized that my anxiety had diminished. It had diminished a lot. And I was able to get through the day and have fun. And I got home that night and I was like, I need to know more. And the internet was brand new at the time. Well, I guess it wasn't brand new, but I was just really starting to get familiar with it. It was 2000, so I had had it for a while, but there wasn't much great stuff on the internet. And so I found Gary Craig, the founder of EFT, and he had training, and I took it, all of it. And it changed my life. I started using it in my practice, even before I really knew what I was doing. Fortunately, I didn't hurt anybody. But I just kept taking the training and taking the training and taking the training. And it was a lot of training at that time. I don't know, more than 100 hours. It was a lot. But more importantly, I put it to work in my practice. And I started to see what was working and what wasn't working. And I continued to use EFT on a daily basis in my own life, and then with my clients every day. And eventually I went on to start just teaching people in my life, and then I went on to become a trainer. And I taught people live based on all of, the requirements at the time, how to use EFT in their own life. And I went on to train a lot of people. Then in 2009, another story, which I won't get into too much, we decided to start an online university. Online universities were completely new at the time. We had heard of Phoenix University. That was really the only one, but a friend of mine was had a PhD in education, and he knew how to do it. So we ended up starting an online university called the International Metaphysical University in 2009. And as part of that, we had a program in alternative healthcare, and we decided to put up a class on EFT. We didn't even know if it was possible in those days. What could that even look like? But it turned out better than I ever could have imagined. And I realized in retrospect that all of the live classes I had done, and there had been many, I could never teach the people everything they wanted to teach them. I never had the time that I needed to teach them everything they needed to know. I mean, I had hundreds of hours of training and experience, and here, I had like a few days, and in that period of time, I not only had to teach them about EFT, I had to try to get them to embody a skill set, and every group was different. Every group had different training and different questions, and in the end, it wasn't enough training. Even if they had a little test at the end to make sure they remembered what I taught them, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. But the online training, well, that changed everything. Now they got consistent content because I taught it once, and then everybody could see the same content. And it was exactly the content that I wanted to teach. There were no diversions from the live training. There was no interruptions, and I could teach everybody everything that I wanted to teach them completely. And the cool thing about that was that at the time I had a policy where people could take the training as often as they wanted for free, but how many people are going to do that? How many people are going to go back and take the training over and over again? Very few people did. I had one woman who took it 4 times, but she was the anomaly, not the norm, right? And so people would learn it once, and then they'd walk out the door and they'd forget most of what they learned in the workshop, if they'd even been able to absorb it because they had learned it so fast. I'm shoving information down people's throat so that I can get as much in as possible, and they couldn't possibly absorb it all or remember it all. But the online training solved it, because people could go back and watch the training over and over again as often as they wanted to take it. They could, and they did. And what I found was people were getting much better training. And then, we figured out over time how people could do online sessions with each other. In the early days, it wasn't even possible, But then Skype came along, and, Facebook was around at the time, and we found ways for people to start tapping with each other. And that really upped the whole thing and just took it all to another level. And since then, looking back, I wouldn't teach the training live again, because it's not fair to the people taking the training. You can't come out of a live training you can't come out of a live training embodying the skill set of a practitioner. You might know about EFT, you might know this technique or that technique, but you're not an EFT practitioner. You're someone who knows about EFT. And most of the trainings will send you out and tell you to go do 50 sessions. Well, what good is that? If you don't have somebody who's there overseeing you and helping you to learn from, from what you're doing, from the mistakes that you're making, from the whole experience. It's just an exercise. It's a useless exercise. But when you're tapping with other students inside the training, and then you go on and start tapping with people, real clients, and you have us overseeing you the whole way, you're really learning, and you're really embodying the skill set of a practitioner. So anyway, that's my story. It's the whole story, or at least the longer version of it. And, EFT, it saved my life. And, it became my life. I've been doing this now 23 years. And I've helped a lot of people in my lifetime. I've become a really good practitioner. And I've trained more than 5,000 people now, which is it's awesome. And it's a big honor to have done that, because I know that those people are not only healing their own lives, but they're also out there helping others. And so, we're making the world a better place. Sorry if the camera's shaking. I'm just holding it on my knee. But that's it. That's the long version of my story. And if you're thinking about getting trained in EFT, what I can say is I can't imagine where I would be if I hadn't. My mom had anxiety. She did pills and counseling her whole life, and I wasn't going to do that because I saw it didn't work. And I'm so happy that I never went down that road. And I can't imagine my life without EFT. And I know that if you decide to bring EFT into your own life, that you too will be very happy you did. It's a life changer. It's a game changer. It's the real deal. And love to have you in the training.